Hi, and thanks for tuning in to Sweet Talk with Taylor. Today we will be covering options and allowances within OnCost estimating, including what they are, how they can be used, and how to generate reports for them to present to your customer. Let's start off with allowances. For those of you who are unfamiliar, allowances are simply going to represent the budgeted amount for a specific subcategory that's typically left up to the client or the subcontractor to decide how the money is spent. This will usually include all costs such as labor, materials, or other fees for the subcategory. And if the total price for the subcategory costs more or less than the allowance value, then typically the original contract sum should be adjusted to reflect that change. If we navigate over to our specialty options category in our estimate, you'll see that we have a few allowances already set up: security system, intercom system. You can designate a subcategory as an allowance by choosing the drop-down in the type column and choosing either allowance, option, or change order as opposed to the original estimate. As I mentioned, we have a few subcategories here already designated as allowances for our specialty options, which gives the client a budget and allows them to shop around and find the configuration that they desire. Now, once you have some allowances on your estimate, if you would like to generate a report for your client showing them all of the allowance subcategories on the job, simply come up to the Customer Reports section and the Reports tab on the ConstructionSuite toolbar and choose the Allowances report. Once we save our estimate to make sure that all of our information is updated, it will bring up our OnPoint wizard here to generate the Allowances report. And once this window comes up, you'll see that we have a few options as to what we actually want to include on this report. The first is going to be the total cost, whether we want sales tax and markup in there with the estimated cost, which columns we want to see. That can be anything from resources to the sales tax to the line item markup. And then we can also see a few other options, such as whether we would like to include sections with no value, include the line item notes, and some borders and aesthetic views. We're going to go ahead and include all of these columns. You can see what it will look like. We'll go ahead and generate our allowances report. And as you can see here, we have a nice cover sheet for our project allowances with our letterhead and the company, project, and client information. We then have a nice table showing all of our options, or our specialty options, that have allowances designated. So we've got the security system, the intercom system, and the specialty options miscellaneous. The ones that do have line items underneath them, we do have the line item level of detail as well. And then the allowances associated with each subcategory or item. Now again, you can customize which columns you see in this report in that wizard, but we chose to display all columns. You can see the available information. And then of course it will give you the nice totals at the bottom for all of the allowances on the job. Now let's go ahead and talk about options. Options can be used in a variety of ways, but the two most common are for upgrades and selections. If you have an optional feature, such as our central vacuum unit here, you can list the subcategory as an option in the same way that you did as the allowance, so that you can see the cost, but it will not affect the project total while it's still under consideration. So this 16, 18, 30 right here is not actually being factored into the project total since it's still an option and the client hasn't decided that they actually want to include it yet. So as soon as you change this to estimate, you'll see that the project total will be altered. And we're going to change this back to options so you can see that that 16, 18 is not actually contributed. If the client chooses to move forward with the upgrade, you can then either convert the option to the estimated value, as I just did, or to a change order, depending on whether the original contract has already been signed. Now, the other method of selections can be represented very well by hardwood floors, which if we go over to our floor covering category here, you can see. You'll see we have a few options here designated for the hardwood flooring, just based on the different types of flooring that we have. You can see that we have a few different options here for the hardwood flooring, just based on the finishes and types of wood that we're using. One for maple spice, one for cabernet, and one for the tinted oak. You'll see that the cost of each one of the flooring is slightly different, so $420 for this per unit, $240, and $310. And this is going to give us different subtotals for each one of these options. Now, you can generate these to go ahead and see what the effective cost would be for each one of the choices that the client can make, see how it would affect the estimate, and once again, none of these will actually contribute to the project total until you decide that one is going to be part of the estimate. Now, if you'd like to generate a report for these containing all of the available options so that the client can review them, We can do the same thing we did with the allowances and come up here to Customer Reports and choose Options Report. This will again save our estimate to make sure we have the updated information, and then pull up our wizard for the options report. Once again, the options we have here are going to be very similar to that of the allowances report. We can choose what we would like to see in the total cost, the columns we would like to display, and then the settings such as including selections with no values, line item notes, or table borders. And we're going to generate this. And just as with the allowances report, you'll see that we have our nice letterhead here, the header, and then the information for the company, client, and project. And then we'll have our table of options. So our floor covering, you'll see our 3 different options here and what each one's going to cost. You'll see the specialty options for that central vacuum that we talked about, and then the different line items underneath that. And it'll give you the total of all of the available options here in the report. If you need a summary of the total amount that you have allocated to options and allowances, you can see these totals over in the summary sidebar under the cost by type section. You'll see here that we have our estimate, our options, allowances, and change orders all included. The option and allowance designations will allow you to better manage your estimates and keep track of your potential costs throughout the job, so be sure to take advantage of these different types when you're creating your estimates. Thanks for tuning in to Sweet Talk.